Hello and welcome to Art. We're going to learn some art history, learn about artists, and do some hands-on projects together today. Now, let's start out with what is art? When we look up the word art in the dictionary, we see that it tells us that art is an expression of human creative skill and imagination. We see this expressed in visual forms such as painting, sculpture, but art is also expressed through music and literature, dance, architecture, cinema, theater, philosophy, and more. As we learn more about art, we will be discussing art movements. An art movement is a specific style of art that was used by a group of artists for a period of time. Art movements often involve multiple areas of studies like music, painting, philosophy, sculpture. As we start to create our own artwork, we will learn about some of the artists that were involved in different art movements. We will also be learning about and applying the different art elements. The elements of art are the visual components of line, shape, form, space, color, and texture, value. The elements of art are the building blocks used by artists to create a work of art. Over the next few weeks, we will be exploring the art elements, line, and shape. The concepts of line and shape and the project we will be doing together will build over time. Today is all about lines. So what is the art element line? Line is a mark with greater length than width. Lines can be horizontal, they can be vertical, they can be diagonal, they can be straight or curved, thick or thin. We're going to explore these different types of lines and how they create different types of art. So the supplies we will need today are paper, possibly scissors and glue, black paper. We're going to also need some markers, blue, yellow, and red. And we're also going to need a black marker as well. Now we're going to grab our white paper and we're going to draw several vertical lines across the page using our black marker. Now our vertical lines are lines that go up and down. So let's go ahead and spend some time, and I want you to draw some vertical lines across your paper. Remember, they can be different lengths, they can be thick, they can be thin. Draw a few across. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our horizontal lines. So our horizontal lines is going from left to right, or right to left, but are going to go across the page this direction. So go ahead and add more horizontal lines to your page. Now let's take a look at our paper. What do we notice as we're drawing our different lines? Do we notice that when we draw lines vertically and horizontally, when they connect, they actually create a shape? That's kind of interesting. So next, I wanted you to take your drawing here, and I want you to go ahead and add some primary colors. So you can add anywhere between 2 to 3 of your primary colors. It's up to you. Now remember, our primary colors are our red, yellow, and blue. They are the colors that all other colors are made from. So go ahead and spend a few moments, and I want you to go ahead and add in those different colors onto your work. As you're adding your colors, what do you notice when you think about and you compare what your artwork looked like prior to adding the color? Does the color make the artwork pop a little bit more? Is your eye drawn to different areas where the color was added? Go ahead and keep adding color. We're going to take just a moment more to do so. All right, how's it coming? I want to let you know that you just created abstract art. That's right, you're an abstract artist. Have you ever heard the term abstract art before? The main characteristic of abstract art is that it has no recognizable subject. Some abstract artists had theories on the emotions that were caused by certain shapes and colors. They planned out their seemingly random paintings to the last detail. Other abstract artists painted with emotion and randomness, hoping to capture their emotion and subconscious thoughts on canvas. So, remember how we talked about different art movements, where groups of artists are working in a specific style together during a specific time? Well, abstract art movement took place in the United States in its purest form. Abstract art has no subject. It's just lines, shapes, and colors. Abstract art movement was called abstract expressionism because although the art has no subject, it is still trying to convey some kind of emotion. Now, this art movement began over about 80 years ago in New York City after World War II. However, the real first abstract art was painted earlier by people that we call expressionists. Now, we're going to learn about an early abstract painter today, and his name is Piet Mondrian. We're going to watch a video together about Mondrian. So let's take a look. While the video is playing, feel free to sketch in your sketchbook or on paper that's next to you. This is your time to create. And often while we're watching videos, we get creative inspiration. So here we go. Let's take a look.
Piet Mondrian's work can sometimes be hard to appreciate. These shuffling colorful squares and these intersecting black lines make his paintings all blend together, as if each of them were unique, yet identical at the same time. But this particular style was only one step in Mondrian's quite linear artistic progression. He was born in 1872 in Amersfoort, Netherlands, and will start painting, just like many other Dutch artists, landscapes. Already then, he adopts unconventional techniques. For example, most Dutch landscapes displayed the famous Netherlands sky and its puffy clouds, but Mondrian, in At Work on the Land, made in 1898, puts the horizon line extremely high, not leaving much space for any clouds. He then explored many different movements such as Impressionism, as seen in Willow Grove, Impression of Light and Shadows, made in 1905. He also explores Post-Impressionism as seen in Evening, Red Tree, completed in 1910, in which we can clearly see the influence coming from Van Gogh. Mondrian also had a Fauves phase, which will preface the importance of primary colors in his later work. But in 1911, an art movement will heavily influence him. He discovers, through Picasso and Braque, Cubism and will move to Paris to further his career. In 1911, he paints a first version of Still Life with Ginger Pot, and then, the following year, reinterprets the painting in a Cubist style. The intersecting black lines first make their appearance. Mondrian will slowly start to move away from representation, which we can see by comparing his older tree paintings with The Great Tree, painted in 1911. Only 1 year later, he will, again, make one step closer to abstraction with another representation of a tree, Flowering Apple Tree. He will continue to make abstract paintings in Paris until 1914 when, during a visit in the Netherlands, World War I begins, not allowing Mondrian to go back in France. This will make Mondrian meet other Dutch artists such as Bart van der Lek and Theo van Doesburg. Together, they will create the De Stijl movement, in which Mondrian defines neoplasticism. He will write, "As a pure representation of the human mind, art will express itself in an aesthetically purified, that is to say, abstract form. The new plastic idea cannot therefore take the form of a natural or concrete representation. The new plastic idea will ignore the particulars of appearance, that is to say, natural form and color. On the contrary, it should find its expression in the abstraction of form and color, that is to say, in the straight line and the clearly defined primary colors." This will be the birth of the Mondrian we know of today, with the colors and the geometry. But it's only in the 1920s that Mondrian will start painting the iconic compositions. Those will also evolve with time. The first compositions usually had more colors and shapes, and sometimes the black lines wouldn't even reach the edge of the canvas. With time, though, Mondrian purified his work, stripping away more and more elements. His compositions started to include less colors, but sometimes more lines, making his work seem more minimalistic or simplified. Finally, in 1938, with the rise of fascism in Europe, Mondrian moves to London and, in 1940, decides to move to New York City. This will be the last step in Mondrian's artistic evolution. Even though he's 68 when he moves to New York, he's captivated by the energy this city has. The busy streets, the booming culture, and especially jazz music will animate him. The black lines in his compositions will be replaced by colorful lines overlapping each other. The last painting Mondrian completes is called Broadway Boogie Woogie, a representation of the grid-like streets of New York. The lines are vivid, and unlike any other Mondrian paintings, they are continuously interrupted by color. The lines are not continuous anymore. They are extremely busy, almost as if they had a certain rhythm to them. Mondrian wanted to create universal art that, through its harmony and simplicity, could appeal to any individual, no matter their background. By simplifying what he painted, Mondrian broke down his subjects to their core essence, lines, shapes, and colors, and arranged them in order to create balance. You may admire Mondrian's work, or maybe you don't see what's so interesting about his horizontal and vertical lines, but what's less debatable is how fascinating Mondrian's quest for purification is. You might not like his individual artworks, but Mondrian's work as a whole is interesting to analyze as it's the work of a lifetime. From the post-impressionist tree to the cubist branches, all the way to the streets of New York, Mondrian's artistic progress is, in itself, a work of art.
All right, so let's go ahead and go back to your artwork that you created. Let's take a look here. Maybe you notice some inspiration like Mondrian. Maybe it looks similar to how he used his color and his line. Let's go ahead and try this again. We're going to create another work of art, but this time we're going to be listening to the song Boogie Woogie. Now, the video I'm going to play, you can go ahead and you can pause and watch it, and then we'll play it again, and you can grab all of your drawing utensils, and we're going to create while we're listening to it and see how the music inspires us. So we're going to listen to Boogie Woogie, and the video that I'm actually going to play with the music is Mondrian's artwork that he created while listening to that song as well, but it's been put into motion. So it's kind of neat to see the different shapes and the lines go across the page with this music. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at Boogie Woogie. And again, feel free to start sketching while you're listening. We are going to play it one more time and grab our drawing utensils. So if you want to just watch it for the first round, that's okay too. So now let's go ahead and grab our drawing utensils and a fresh sheet of paper. Stop the share for a second and just show you some work. So you might have lots of different things sitting in front of you, different sizes of paper, your markers or crayons, whatever drawing utensils and coloring utensils, and you'll end up, we're going to be recreating our artwork that we did with our horizontal and our vertical lines. I'm just going to show you a few here that I have. And then we're going to go ahead and play Boogie Woogie. So go ahead and grab a fresh piece of paper and white piece of paper, and we're going to get make sure we have our black marker or crayon or color pencil, and we're going to make sure we have our primary colors. And we're going to explore again doing our horizontal and our vertical lines. We're going to add in our color, but this time we're going to do it and we're going to create abstract art while we're listening to the music. So everybody ready? Here we go. I'm going to play Boogie Woogie again. And this time, while we're listening to Boogie Woogie, I want you to create another piece of artwork. So here we go. I can give it to Bobby. All right, let's take a look at your artwork. I want you to go ahead and set your pieces of artwork side by side. The one that you created before listening to Boogie Woogie and the one that you created while listening to Boogie Woogie. And take a look. How did the music influence where your lines were? How did it influence where your colors were placed? It's really interesting to see the effect of music that influences our artwork. Pretty neat, huh? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create one last artwork. And while we're doing this, I want you to go ahead and think about your different lines. Remember, lines can be thick and thin. Right now, today, we've been focusing on vertical and horizontal lines. So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and take that black paper that I mentioned, and we're going to cut it into different strips. Okay, so you're going to cut it into, let me show you here. I have some different strips. Some are thicker, some are thinner, and I want you to go ahead and feel free to cut them shorter, keep them longer. You get to decide. Now keep your coloring utensils close by as well, because you're going to go ahead and add colors with those. So remember, we're keeping our primary colors close by, but instead of drawing our lines, we're going to now play with collaging our lines on with our black pieces of paper. All right, so I want you to go ahead and dive in and make sure you have your glue or your tape to adhere those black pieces of paper to your white paper, and go ahead and get started. And we're going to go ahead and listen to Boogie Woogie one more time, but this time we're going to be focusing on creating our collage work with our black pieces of paper. So we're going to cut our black pieces of paper into strips so we have our horizontal and our vertical lines that we can use. And I want you to play with different lengths, and you can cut them thinner, you can cut them thicker, and place them wherever you feel led to place them onto your page. All right, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and listen to Boogie one more time while you're working on your collage. So let me just go ahead and pull that back up. We're going to start it from the beginning again. All right, here we go. let's take a look. Now I want you to look at your collage work. I'm gonna hold up a few here. And I want you to compare it to your drawn work. What do you notice? Do you notice that the lines look different? Were you inspired to work with the collage lines differently than your drawn lines? It's really fun to play with lines and see where it takes us. And think about it. We're using simple lines today. We're using our vertical and our horizontal lines. Yet those two lines can help us create all these different types of compositions. It's so exciting to see what artwork we can make with these lines. So next week, we're actually going to continue talking about lines as well in the next class. So I invite you and encourage you to think about lines this week before you start the next class. Now, I want you to find two subjects around you. Maybe it's a tree, maybe it's a flower growing in your backyard, or maybe your favorite toy. Try to look at the subject and break it down into the simple lines that it makes. All right, so think about maybe even a water bottle, where we have a water bottle will be made up of, well, we would have two vertical lines side by side. We would have two horizontal lines on top. What about the limbs of a tree, like we had seen in the video about Mondrian? How do those different limbs go? What lines do you notice? Instead of focusing on the details of the tree, focus in on the lines, the simple lines that make up that shape. All right, so next class, we'll actually be talking about line, and we're going to be exploring different ways to use line, and we'll be learning about artist Chantal Martin and Christophe Louis, and his artist name is actually Quib. So we're going to be taking a look at both those artists next week and how they're using line and differently than Piet Mondrian. Now, I always like to leave you with a quote at the end of class. So as class ends today, here's a quote from Pablo Picasso. Picasso says, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up." Now, if you're looking for some Take It Further projects, I'm going to link below to a couple of sites that I love the projects that they do. And there is one that is a Mondrian inspired class that I think would be really fun, an extra project if you're interested in doing that. So that'll be linked below. And if, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to comment or message me directly. Goodbye, artists. Have a wonderful day.